Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of I Have Not Dyed My Hair, so please stop asking me. Down. Metal Meltdown.
Yes.
That's the name of the show, right?
Yes.
How are you?
I'm good.
You doing good? This is the first time you've been here while we've been recording.
Yeah, and you had to, and it has pumpkin and bats. And
Oh my goodness.
It's great. 10 out of 10.
That is pretty great. That is a 10 out of 10. What were we talking about again? Kvelertak?
Who? I don't know.
Kvelertak!
Okay, cool. Don't put that in.
I'm gonna put it in.
No.
Today we are talking about Endling, the fifth full-length studio album from Kvelertak, as Anna calls them. This Norwegian crew has been fusing hard rock, heavy metal, punk rock attitude and energy with black metal vibes and tones for just slightly over a decade now, if I'm not mistaken. I first came to know them watching them open for Mastodon and Gojira on tour back in like 2013, 2014, something like that. I've enjoyed a lot of what these guys have put out. There aren't any duds or stinkers in their discography to speak of. 2020's Split in particular was unpredictable, dynamic, filled with all kinds of weird and wild twists and turns. Still maybe one of my favorite albums from that year. I mean, there were like sections of prog metal and thrash metal on that album that was unironically better than a lot of prog metal and thrash metal being released in 2020. Like, it was a legitimate ass kicker from start to finish. With this in mind, right off the bat, I kind of have to immediately admit that Endling is a bit of a step down. It's just a wee little bit. I won't suggest that the album is lazy or generic or derivative, but it definitely plays things a little bit more safe than Split, and I think is more in line with something like their sophomore album, Mirror. It's still very expressive and organic and fun and incredibly well produced, don't get me wrong. But Split, in my mind, was like a Michelin star meal, whereas this is a really good meal. You know, I would be perfectly satisfied with this in a nice restaurant, but it's not exactly Michelin star, alright? It's not even getting a rosette. Also, since I'm basically going to mispronounce literally every single song title, every single lyric, every single everything surrounding this fucking thing, fun new drinking game that I'm adding on last minute. Take a shot every time I do exactly that. Let me know how far you get. Let me know how fucked up you are by the end of this. Let's have some fun. Let's fucking go. First off, there are positives to this more basic, stripped down kind of approach. This creates a more lively, organic kind of feel. It does kind of feel like I'm in the studio with Kvelertak as they're writing and recording. This does help greatly in making the music feel more punchy and immediate. It wastes absolutely no time getting to the fucking point, and the point is pretty consistently great. Opening number Kraterverg te Helvete, see, I told you I was gonna fuck it up, kicks things off with some brooding, churning, slow-paced, kind of like black metal guitar tones and soundscapes and flurries. Underneath it, you have these rolling drums and this very simplistic, kind of like classic rock, punk rock, bass and percussion. There are some like keyboards for extra garnish, some more chugging guitars. The whole thing kind of feels like a Stooges song for a hot minute, but like drawn the fuck out and given like a little dose of like mid-2000s Dark Throne. And right before you find you're starting to get a little impatient and you want this song to hurry the fuck up, it does exactly that and blossoms into something very fun and lively and bouncy, very raw and venomous, but also catchy and upbeat, kind of like blackened Norwegian punk metal, with a lot of fun, tasty classic rock guitar solos and some gang vocals. This was built for a live setting. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they opened every single fucking show with this. Then there's Fedricult, which finds a really nice sweet spot in between some more ferocious, immersive, kind of second-wave black metal worship and some classic, roaring, hard rock and heavy metal attitude. It's a very stubborn and angry track, just kind of plodding along, but doing so with urgency and with extreme confidence. Then there's Likvoke, which throws in some slightly more nuanced and groovy, almost stoner rock kind of riffage. It kind of feels like Queen's the Stone Age for a hot minute, but with a little bit of a biker rock underbelly. And amidst that, you have these muted scream vocals and a lot of like cymbal heavy percussion. It's definitely a more raucous cut, but it works really well. One of my favorite cuts on the record, though, would have to be Doggin' It Ken's VOD. This actually feels in line with something I would have heard on 2020 Split. It's a much more unpredictable track with more twists and turns. It's got these moody spoken word vocals that cuts through the noise like a fog. It's got these shimmering guitars, which when contrasted with the more abrasive kind of like black metal tremolo riffing and percussion, it almost kind of feels like something out of a Black Gaze record for a hot minute. And there's even some like banjo guitar work and hand clap percussion that gives this like a hokey hillbilly rockin' party kind of feel. Like suddenly the setting has changed from being like a loud, smelly, rowdy fucking like underground punk or metal venue in Norway to like a fucking burnt down Cracker Barrel, and I kind of like it. The title track, Endling, is pretty cool, one of the softer cuts on the record, but it still has energy and punch. It feels more so like something in the realms of like some modern post-punk or indie punk, with its more spaced out, shouted vocals, and its heavy emphasis on like acoustic guitars. The album's closing number, Morlid, is really cool too, throwing in some more progressive and psychedelic textures and arrangements and some more like spacious, clean vocal tones. It ends up in a weird way kind of feeling like the bastard freak child of like classic 60s psychedelic rock and Jane's Addiction and, well, basically the standard Kvelertak formula. I do think the album is a little bit heavy-handed. I think it's stronger in its first half pretty consistently than it is in its second half. I would say also there are a few songs here that I just didn't find as interesting as others. There is a little bit of fat and filler. And of course, the natural downsides of this being more in line with earlier Kvelertak records is the fact that it is somewhat more predictable. Like, that's part of why Split was so cool to me, too, in 2020. Like, that was the first time I felt I had been really wowed by Kvelertak since I first saw them opening for Mastodon and Gojira back in the day. And now it's kind of just business as usual for the band. Granted, business is pretty fun and cool for them, but nonetheless. Since I don't speak Norwegian, shocking, I know, right? I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about where the album is centered lyrically or conceptually, but I will tell you, just in case you're interested, that apparently the album is inspired by a mysterious Norwegian recluse by the name of Helmut von Boltenlass. He spent most of his life in isolation, occasionally emerging to fight against anything he comes across related to modern society in defense of nature. During COVID, singer Ivar Nikolaisen spent a lot of time wandering in the mountains and forests, where he began to feel something of a kinship with him and a disdain for building developers and anyone else who would destroy the natural world. Do I have any idea how this factors into the album? No, because I can't read the lyrics. Because again, I don't speak Norwegian. I know. Still very shocking. But it is a cool thing to think of. It is a cool thing to think about and reference for the sake of this review. I'm personally feeling a very, very, very enthusiastic 3.5 out of 5. Despite the language barrier, there is not much fun-wise lost in translation. This album is catchy and extremely well crafted. Lots of good riffage, lots of good drum stuff. I think this is going to be a very popular album. I remember speaking to some people back when Split came out, and they were like, I don't know, I prefer the earlier stuff. And if that's the case, you're probably going to love this too. Not much more to say, honestly. It's fun, hectic, crazy, catchy, Norwegian blackened punk metal stuff. What more do you need to know? 3.5 out of 5, a very, very, very enthusiastic one at that. Not my favorite from this band, but an extremely solid and an entertaining record nonetheless. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.